everyone, welcome to AMA number 3 in our series. We covered introductions and strategy in the first 2 sessions. Today we'll focus more on execution realities, so production deployments, validator decentralization, UBT's practical role, lighthouse examples like Audiogroup, competitive positioning, and a first look at proof of execution concepts. Questions come from pre-submitted community input. This stays away from price speculation or timelines. It's just clear discussion, structure, and progress. I'm Zoe. I'll moderate to keep us on track and ensure every key theme gets proper airtime. So let's start with perhaps the most concrete question, actual usage in production. You've emphasized that Unibright is now the technological core of SPO Consulting. Could you give a concrete update on how many of SPO's existing enterprise clients are using Unibright One in a live production environment today, not just in pilots?
Yeah, okay. Great question. As we don't train these questions, I have to think for 2 seconds. Unibright is the blockchain core of SPO, that's right. And about the number of customers using Unibright One in a production environment, I'd say about 5 to 10, around that number. But let's just keep in mind that we're talking about enterprise usage. So it's always about month and month of talking with the customers to get them to use stuff. So that's totally fine with us. Giving the big picture, for us, it's more important to get a feeling about what our customers experience when using things like Unibright One or Baseledger or other stuff, because we want to build this one product where we get all our learnings and existing products together into this proof of execution infrastructure. And so it's a lot about learning from the customers and from the things they experience.
And looking at what it means from the Audiogroup side, for example, we have several verticals where we are starting to implement it. But these verticals are not simply dead ends in terms of okay, we're going to use it there and that's it, but it's all multipliers. So it's products that we on the Audiogroup side have that will be used where we integrate it, and then it will be rolled out to a specific category of clients of ours. Yeah. And that's actually the whole idea. Audiogroup is the guinea pig for that, trying out to see, okay, what kind of product can we create that is helpful for us, but not only on internal structural things, but actually to then deploy it to a number of clients. And this is down the road the plan to then branch out to different multipliers, because that's the whole idea about branching out. Of course, we cannot do everything by ourselves, but we can prove that if we find the right core partners, they can branch out to various client bases in the end.
Just to sum up, we are not really pushing things like Unibright One at the moment very strongly or pitching it so hard. We're trying to make ends meet and bring all together to build this one infrastructure and one product we want to roll out to our customers. So that's more what we are doing.
So the number is still relatively low, but what are the main blockers you see for a broader rollout across the SPO client base in 2026? Are they more technical, regulatory, organizational, or something else maybe?
Yeah, I don't see any blockers, and I don't think that the number is very low. We just don't want to roll out Unibright One as the product. We want to build a better one where we bring everything together, and that's what we want to give to our customers, and that's what we are working on.
And also, I think we had it in the last AMA, the product shift is towards a more integrated ecosystem where we are not pushing a blockchain solution, but we are pushing a software solution that solves problem that also uses blockchain. Even if sometimes, the customer, the final customer, will not have to use the blockchain thing. It's I would say, an integral part that can be used and that often makes sense. This was missing in the last kind of round of things that have been created, that we were too depending on others building verticals or final use cases. And in this case, we're building the use cases directly, which is also why, SPO is merged together with Unibright so that it makes more sense. I can directly again talk about an Audiogroup example. So we are not actually, as a company, we're not looking for a blockchain solution as such. We're looking for an administration solution that is clear to manage and administer music copyrights, and they have to be legally safe and even court proof. And this is something that only works with the blockchain. So we need the piece of software, to kind of, you can imagine it like an ERP or something, a piece of software that helps us manage clients, manage assets, manage all sorts of things. But we also need the aspect of the blockchain, which is this whole legal and proof of rights chain and provenance topic. And once we have that, we're not actually going to our clients, in this case, music publishers and big music publishers, big music labels, and tell them, hey, now we have blockchain technology and you can use it, because they will be like, well, who cares? It's more like, hey, we are working with you. Here's a new system that would help you streamline your whole management and the whole, the litigation processes and all these things that we do. And we can actually give you direct access to absolutely tamper-proof data. And this is kind of coincidentally locked in on the blockchain. Yeah. And this is the point where we start to see the multipliers.
Yeah, that's a great explanation. I mean, blockchain becoming more like an infrastructure component than an explicit product we want to sell. And that's, in the recent years, Unibright, as it was alone as a company, it had this blockchain products it wanted to sell. And now we are set up much differently with SPO and Audiogroup, and having this access to ERP clients and people that want to talk about enterprise systems, and they don't want to talk about blockchain first, but about enterprise systems and processes they want to optimize. And that's a whole different approach to it. And of course, we have the regulatory environment that has changed to our advantage, where we see a lot of pressure, people looking into blockchain solutions now. And that's a different setup than we had it the last years.
So let's move to a topic that's critical for large enterprises when they evaluate any infrastructure: decentralization and validator structure. For many enterprise clients, decentralization is closely linked to security and resilience. At the moment, Baseledger still has a limited number of independent validators. Does this create what you might call a centralization stigma when you talk to larger corporations?
I mean, Baseledger is one of our products, and to be honest, it was meant to be a public permission blockchain from the beginning. So it was always clear that it has a limited number of validators and entities or companies running the nodes. And it was, I think, 35 companies running nodes. It was the top, the maximum. That was what we expected, and I think it's fine, but still it's a public permission blockchain. It was never the idea to have the grade of decentralism like Ethereum has it. And to be completely honest, Baseledger shines more in private setups. So what we see is customers taking the code base and setting it up as a private blockchain. So between, I don't know, a company and their suppliers or so, that they end up with a trusted blockchain they can anchor things on. That's what it's being used for. And that's just a learning we have. And that's why Baseledger is something that it's still there, and we keep it working, and it's fine. But I think it won't evolve any further. With our new infrastructure, we'll have a different type of anchoring proofs. So we have to see Baseledger as something beside the things we are building.
And I'd like to add, we touched on that on the last AMAs already. I mean, with Unibright 1, when we launched it, the primary goal was also to support the usage of Baseledger. And we already noticed there that there's a lot of requests for anchoring basic proofs back then with or in the current state of Unibright 1 on different blockchains or L2 solutions for Ethereum. So we keep that approach, of course, up and running. So it's not mandatory to anchor every proof on Baseledger, especially if there's more decentralization wanted per definition of the protocol used, then it should be agnostic to that part. And also a reminder of the last answers, the usage of UBT is switched from, like, let's call it the backend side of things or the protocol side of things, the inherent use within Baseledger, it is transformed to the very use of the platform itself. So we're not so much dependent anymore that anchors are proved, especially on Baseledger. We can anchor them on any blockchain, and still UBT is used to build, let's say, the proof of execution network above it. So that's one thing. And this also adds to the former questions and answers in terms of how many clients do we have. I mean, for example, the audio group example with big publishers is quite a space where there is some centralization, because you have some very big publishers, and so we would be very happy if all those big publishers would be using like the solution we're building right now. Then the number of clients could be 4 or 5, but the actual users of the system could go into hundreds of thousands, because they're all residing under the same publisher. So if that part of decentralization is wanted, you don't have to rely on Baseledger alone. You can also use other blockchains that we're anchoring proofs on.
What's the concrete roadmap for onboarding more independent, reputable enterprise validators by the end of 2026?
I can start if you want. So a roadmap is always a funny story, because we already see it right now. So of course we have some ideas, and the initial idea is to have our own usage types integrated, because that is I would say a proof of concept and also real life proof, because it's real business and it's real things going on. But even though we're not even pushing anything to the outside right now, we're getting a new opportunity, I would say, once a week. There are so many companies that are in some way related to what we do, since we're, of course, in kind of outbound company. We're in contact with all sorts of companies all over the world. It's music industry, it's a lot of gaming, it's AI tech, mainly on the audio side, of course. It's simulation, it can be defense, it can be automotive, it can be industrial stuff. It's a very broad network, and the way to talk to clients in the state where we are right now, or it's not like, here's the final solution, do you want it, yes or no? It's more like understanding, what do clients need, what do customers need, what are their problems, how can we help them, how can we solve them? And it's interesting how many opportunities are opening up. It's not like there's, the 1, 2 things we want to do and hopefully somebody will get it. It's more like we need to focus on our core thing to not get distracted too much. But on the other hand, there is new ideas and new things and new requests coming from outside, which if it comes from outside, it's of course not just made up, that give us new ideas. The AI sector, of course, is super hot at the moment, and it's kind of obvious that, with things that are being generated or created with AI, you need to do things like, where does this come from? What has been used? Is there perhaps a way to create royalty models based on that? And that's, a small part, but in a super big environment right now, because, obviously AI is pretty hyped. But we need to make sure that we're not jumping on every train. We need to make sure that we keep the core, what we want to do, which is very much related to the structural software solution. And we're building it in a way that it can rather easily then be adapted to different usage types. Of course, not everything. If they ask us, can you install a software on the moon, we would perhaps say no, but you know what I mean. It's very broad, because it's still basic functionality and basic technology that is meant to solve general problems, and not too much looking into one thing only. And then if it's the wrong bet, we have kind of lost, a year of time or something. But to answer the question, it's not the time right now to have a clear roadmap on how to develop clients. It's too early still, but we're in the fortunate situation that we can already have the first client with the stuff that we do, branching out to third-party outside clients, while at the same time not losing too much time in being too specific to these clients, because we're the gatekeepers. On the Audiogroup side, we can say, okay, there's these 50 clients we could reach out to, but these 20 would be so off track. We'd rather not tell them and keep it all in a kind of safe environment to make sure that we're not doing too many things at one time, because obviously that's always a problem, that if you start doing too many things at one time, then you're not getting anywhere.
And just to emphasize, I think it's great what Pierre said, and the AI thing and the regulatory thing that are just things we only have to wait for them to unfold. because there are huge potentials. And with AI, I really think the last few years, there was this huge hype and it took away capital and attention from the crypto markets as well. But it feels like this is coming back now, where you see the question of how to prove how a system was trained, or this whole provenance thing. Now blockchain can play a vital role again in this use cases now that AI offers. You can even think about AI agents holding tokens or doing economic transactions. I mean, this is somehow coming together. And of course, we don't only wait, we are building this great product, but there are huge potentials building up. And as I said, with the regulatory pressure from the other side, especially in the European Union, there's things coming into the world as well, which companies are talking about already and asking us for how could we fulfill these demands that we are feeling or seeing on the horizon. And that's why we want to build this one infrastructure that can handle all these use cases. And that's honestly, it's great. It's very exciting.
So there's no lack of opportunity?
No.
Definitely not.
So beyond simply holding UBT, what kind of incentives or benefits are you designing to make validator participation attractive for these enterprise-grade actors?
Perhaps you should first define the terms. I mean, if validators is meant like in the environment of Baseledger, then nothing changes with any product above that Baseledger layer that uses Baseledger, because the validators are incentivized by the Baseledger network. If validators means like participants in a decentralized process that we are building on our new solution that forwards the proof of execution idea, then of course the incentivization for UBT on one side is the credit system for using the system, and on the other hand it's a security feature and also a proof of decentralization, that we built this on a token that has broad adoption and that is decentralized all over the world and over thousands of different wallets. So that's a feature per se that adds to the decentralized structure of the system we are building.
Yeah, and as Stefan said, I mean, in the new infrastructure, in the proof of execution platform that we are building, there will be kind of validators as well, which will be incentivized to hold UBT, and they have to do it. So as we, I think, talked about in the last AMA, there will be this incentivized ecosystem designed in a way that people are incentivized to hold UBT and see UBT becoming more and more widespread used and appreciated.
So we've talked about the network side. Let's look at the token side, specifically how UBT's central role is maintained in practice and how liquidity is handled if large clients come in. So in our February AMA, Marten, you mentioned that UBT is returning to its central role as the mandatory utility for the infrastructure. At the same time, on-chain volume and exchange liquidity currently look quite low. So how do you reconcile those two realities?
Yeah, one could say that on-chain liquidity is low, although I never had a problem buying UBT using decentralized exchanges, and customers I talk to as well. But the truth is, of course, enterprises normally don't use exchanges. There are and will be intermediaries like, I don't know, credit pools that we offer, or I don't know, service providers that handle those things. So there's, I guess, no real problem with liquidity. It's more for the retail investor, and we see that problem and the perception, and yes, we have it in our mind, and it's not a super high priority thing, but of course we have it in our mind. Talking about ways to increase liquidity or having exchanges listing UBT, it is something that's in our roadmap. I don't like the term as well, but it's on our roadmap, and something that it's something we will tackle over this year, I guess.
And I'd also like to add, there are already some mechanics in place that or incentives in place that even the decentralized opportunities to get or buy or sell UBT, I mean, they are able to grow if demand grows. So if there are pools already that incentivize the pool holders to provide liquidity, then they will be even more incentivized if there's more request. So it's not that the technology that's available or the decentralized pools or exchanges or possibilities to get UBT are in any form limited. They can be extended as well. And so sometimes it's a little bit of a theoretical question, because we saw always peaks of demand of UBT that were perhaps not directly related to a client activity, but perhaps more to a token holder activity. And I can't remember a point in time of the Unibright history where there was ever a problem like getting UBT. All the people that wanted to get UBT were able to do so, and I think this will be
it's I think the question might be motivated as well when people think about an exchange listing as a kind of a PR thing where we get the story out. And of course, this will be something we do at a moment in time where we see fit and have a story we want to get out that can be explained. And that's not today, of course. But if seeing from this side, it might make sense as a PR thing to get our story out.
So if a new large enterprise client needs to acquire substantial UBT credits to run on the infrastructure, how do you avoid massive, unsustainable price slippage when they enter the market?
As Stefan said, even today there wouldn't be a massive slippage. I looked up Uniswap and other decentralized exchanges, and there were more or less huge transactions in the last month, and there was no huge slippage. So I don't see the problem. And as we already emphasized, there will be things in place like a credit pool or service providers that help enterprises. I guess for enterprises, it's more about they don't want to touch decentralized exchanges at all. So they want to have help with it. That's what service providers or we do. And honestly, in the last 8 years, we never had the problem. So it's hard for me to see the problem.
If you are really digging into, one could say we had more problems with centralized exchanges that people asked for and suddenly got wiped off the market or got hacked or anything. So I mean, it's always two sides of things: asking for more decentralization, and on the other hand, asking for PR related centralized exchanges.
Yeah,
we have our opinions here, and we also stated them in the past. So we don't have to overemphasize on this. But currently, I agree with Marten. There is no actual problem in getting UBT,
and that's really a pity with the centralized exchanges. Stefan is totally right. There are still, I guess, millions of UBT locked in with centralized exchanges that gonna run out of business, and those tokens are gone forever. But that's another story.
Are there plans for institutional market making, liquidity partnerships, or other mechanisms in 2026 to ensure that large-scale adoption is actually feasible from a liquidity standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we touched on these points already, and yes, it is on the agenda. It's something we can do, and I guess others and companies close to us can and will do. So enterprise customers, they are all fine.
One place where all of these topics come together, production use, token mechanics, narrative clarity, is Audiogroup. So let's zoom in on that example. Pierre, in your dual role as CEO of Audiogroup and business director at Unibright, to what extent is Audiogroup already serving as a primary lighthouse customer for this ecosystem?
Okay, so primary lighthouse is definitely something that works in the background. So I already said that we're currently kind of implementing several verticals. The first one is not too far from being ready. I must say, I mean, you noticed over the past two questions when it was about the token and the whole crypto thing that I was keeping quite quiet actually, because this is, I think, the difference of perspective between what I see from the Audiogroup side is this whole crypto thing and the token thing is something that is not really the central point for me. The central point is to have a software or platform solution that, like I said, makes logical use of the blockchain thing and with the blockchain of the token. But it's not about, okay, let's try to hype the token because there's some big names. It's definitely something that what we're doing here is do something on the long run. It's not, we don't want to be, pushing things without any real value just by telling a story. The thing is, we are building the first verticals that will then multiply to our clients. And once we have that, the biggest problem on the enterprise side is that it's not so easy to go out and say, hey, we are now working with X and Y on this and this, because obviously it's all usually something you cannot disclose easily. So I would say we are not starting from scratch, of course. There has been a lot of work done in the past, and the 2 years prior to this, this new phase now, things have been quiet, and there still had been a lot of work from the Unibright team. But we are pivoting to something new, which means that it will be a slower start. You cannot expect things to happen super fast. And they will happen on the enterprise level, which means that it's less about flashy storytelling. It's more about real business, which may be a bit, I would say sometimes it's perhaps a bit more boring, but on the long term, it's of course much more valuable. Long answer to basically a short question. Audiogroup is not only one lighthouse because it's not only one topic, it's several topics, it's several customer groups, it's a whole network of different topics we're doing. Of course, all in some way related to digital assets, I would say. And the first thing that we'll be able to talk about is not too far away.
Looking ahead, when do you expect to be able to share a public case study on this industry rollout that the broader community can point to?
Like I said, the first ones will be things that are pretty close to our group, to our companies, because that's what we control. Of course, we can decide, let's say, one of the companies that is part of Audiogroup uses it. We can, of course, very openly talk about it. But if a big customer on our side for this company inside Audiogroup uses it, we may say that we have this vertical, but we may not be able to say which clients are using it, which big names. And this is something that has to happen over time, because it's not as if these big enterprises or corporations are super secretive in terms of you can never mention our name. But if you are establishing a relationship with a big enterprise client, it's not the second thing you ask, like, hey, once we've signed the contract, can we directly go public with it and put it on the internet? And actually, we would like to put it in a crypto forum or something. You need to be a bit more, I would say, you need to be a bit more calm with that, and you need to be a bit more careful, build a level of trust, and then eventually it goes smoothly and you can talk about it. But it's not the first thing you do, because it makes people feel like, hey, are they actually serving, do they want to sell us something good, or do they want to help us with their services, or do they just want to make a flashy story? And we're not the flashy story guys, so we need to be a bit more serious about things, I'd say.
And I'd like perhaps to add to some things that we also mentioned in the last AMAs. I mean, the blockchain part, we keep repeating that, is an infrastructural part that is an underlying part of the actual use case a potential client has. So the best thing that could happen is that we leave very happy clients with, say, more on the ERP integration side of things, where blockchain adds a big value to the solution itself. And if the client is happy, then of course it's way easier to talk about public statements or addressing even joint use case stories or whatever. But the first things first, and this would be to make the client happy, like on the platform and experience level that actually is connected to the use case the client has. And then the blockchain crypto part, if it adds something valuable, which it will and which it does in our case, then it's way easier to put that into communication as well, I think.
And that's perhaps also something, if people are looking at Audiogroup or SPO at, okay, what's the news, what's going on, what's happening, related to UBT. I think you need to be able to read between the lines. If on the SPO website or SPO social media there is a new client being mentioned, mostly this client will be mentioned in terms of we're working with this client providing software services or providing software solutions. We will not say, at least not at the beginning, we have this client and this client has bought X and Y million UBTs. Because that's totally off the track also for the client. So the I would say the outside communication will be absolutely about the integrated software and platform systems, where the blockchain plays a role, but it's not the central part.
So Audiogroup is one concrete example, but the market is getting crowded, especially in what we now call the AI trust layer. Let's talk about how you differentiate there. We're seeing more and more projects positioning themselves in the AI trust layer or AI auditing space. From your perspective, what is the specific technological moat that protects Unibright One against competitors in this area?
Perhaps it's not so much about protection, but rather than feature driven. So I'd say there is still a distinction in the space when it comes to consulting and old school software development or ERP strategy, and anything that's somehow new tech related, which perhaps still is the case for the AI topic. So the main advantage is, I think, that we can bring together not only like this old school expertise from classical software consulting and development, but also having a very large track record in integrating new technologies, as we did with blockchain in the first place, and now on the AI level. And I mean, we listened to Pierre and the Audiogroup environment and digital assets connected mainly to audio here. And I mean, besides the image and video thing, there's not a space where the reality is hit so hard by AI. Let's face it. I mean, there are many audio producers and sound designers and composers and musicians that really see an impact from AI on their daily work, perhaps on their income, perhaps also on the positive side, on the possibilities they have to produce new stuff. So there couldn't be a better space where you bring together like the existing client and user framework on the audio side of things, the consulting network on the SPO side of things, and put the blockchain layer somewhere in between to give back a little bit of trust perhaps, or of execution proofs in a world that is more and more related to AI development.
Yeah, and just to be clear, we are not doing a pivot into the AI space. I mean, we are working on this proof of execution infrastructure, and we have been working on it for years. And we have this classical use cases like, I don't know, green steel or digital passports or so, things that work with this infrastructure. And we just happen to realize that all the AI use cases and AI agentic use cases, they also fit this platform. So it's not we are following this hype. It's just it all fits together. And about the question about the mode, so okay, it's very detailed questions. There are features which we have built into the infrastructure, like, I don't know, privacy features, selective disclosures, work groups. These are things we learned over the last years. These are things that enterprises need if they want to use such a proof platform. We have still human validators in the infrastructure, so it's something that not every platform has. It's built in a way that the proofs are to some degree court proof, so there's a lot of brain power going into it. It's not just let's build this AI trust layer where we store some funny hashes. I mean, we are some years ahead here, I guess, in our experience and our knowledge. So I know it's a lot of stuff, and we are not coming out with a white paper yet, but it will become much clearer over the next month.
And I must also, to your initial question, Zoe, about I would say the competition, like the market is getting crowded of people who build these kind of AI trust things. I think the big difference here from our perspective is there's new projects coming up, which is basically all blue sky stuff. They just say they're going to develop this, and that is, very much focused on the crypto market, I would say, because they want to either, release a token or, do whatever they want, do whatever they need to get money, to get funding, to build this. And even if they build it, which, without any doubt, people will do great technology because obviously there's enough clever people out there. Even if you have the great technology, it doesn't mean that anybody outside this bubble of the blockchain crypto world knows about it. And that's perhaps even something that in the past UBT was struggling with as well. You may have a great reputation and you may deliver incredible tech, but if nobody knows about it, you don't make a single dime. So that doesn't work. And that is something that perhaps is important on our side. We're totally we're past this blue sky phase, totally, because there is a tech that is, ripe in development. It's only the verticals that need to be built, but the foundational stuff has been proven and has been developed for years and years and years. So that's the one advantage, and also what Marten said is that we're a few years ahead. But the second thing, and that's more coming from my side, of course, is that you shouldn't underestimate the reach and network of a company that is in a real business situation, like Audiogroup, for example, has been for 25 years. And it's not only about audio, it's about the network of potential clients. So if you look at what we do, all sorts of things, I already talked about it, games and all the different industries, it's perhaps not tangible enough, but for example, we have one product that is used by any type of company. It could be car manufacturers, it could be banks, it could be consultant companies, it could be any company that needs a lot of marketing, because marketing needs audio. So they are licensing stuff from us, they are licensing our platforms, they are licensing our tech, whatever it is, doesn't really matter which tech it is on our side, but they have a level of trust with us and we with them that gives us the opportunity, if we have something to, provide to them that is even outside the audio world, we can simply call them up. We can simply tell them, hey, we've been doing business on this and this side. They know that we're not only the audio guys, they know that we're also providing tech platforms, which are audio related, but it's still tech platforms. And then we tell them, you've been using this platform. Actually, we added a new layer, which helps you to prove that, things have been the proof of execution thing. Things have been rendered that way, or things have been used that way, or things have been documented that way. Is it something that is interesting for you also outside this audio usage? And it's extremely powerful to be able to not have to get into that entry barrier, right from the start. We simply can call up the right people and get internal introductions. So this network of actual sales execution is an incredible advantage that no startup has.
I need to chime in here because it's fitting perfectly. Don't want to take away your job, Zoe, but there has been one question already in the last AMA where we ran out of time, and we got personal reminders to include this question in this AMA. So it was a little bit framed. So why, after focusing on enterprise blockchain integration for years, does the perception of Unibright remain confused with speculation about pivots into opportunistic or unrelated fields, suggesting a lack of clear customer focus or communication? I mean, yeah, I'd like to touch on the framing. I challenge that framing a little bit, of course. It's not that we are pivoting into opportunistic or unrelated fields, not at all. Everything that we built in the last years, let's say only the Unibright phase without SPO, it was different technical fields in the blockchain space, but they were not unrelated. Everything comes very well together, be it smart contracts, be it tokenization, be it decentralized ledger. Everything builds perfectly together, already did into Unibright 1 and will continue so. And opportunistic, I mean, it could also be a positive thing if you see an opportunity and take it. And what I take as a thing that we want to work on is perhaps the lack of communication. That's why we established this regularly AMAs. But everything that Pierre just said perfectly sums up like the way we went from Unibright to first include it into broader, let's say, consulting space, and then to not have to work on an empty field with great tech but no customers. We joined forces with something like the Audiogroup, where the every digital asset is the central part of their daily business, and the central part for the clients they also work with these digital assets. So I think everything comes perfectly together in place to get away from this purely technical stuff and have great products where nobody is perhaps even understanding them, to put them in a broader consulting environment first, and then integrate a usage over the Audiogroup, where there are a lot of big players that also have networks that could use all this technology. So also to the competitors, I think we are many years ahead, because all these channels have been built independently from another. It was 20 or more than 20 years of work to build the Audiogroup the way it stands out now. So all this is coming together. And it was a personal wish of me to address this question, at least in this AMA.
Well, thank you, Stefan. I think this brings us to a concept that you've mentioned more recently, proof of execution, and how you're thinking about verifying that processes really happened in the way they should. So when you say proof of execution, what exactly do you mean? How would you define that in sort of non-technical terms?
I mean, in general, proof of execution can mean more or less everything. Can mean an agent having done something, or some process step in an enterprise process being executed. So everything needs to be proved to some degree. And that's what we've been working on the last few years, where we had Baseledger or Unibright 1, where you just could write things onto a blockchain, but there's more to proofs. We learned there's things like work groups, companies working together in groups. There are parts of the data that have to be kept in private, so there is selective disclosure. There are things like, if you want to prove to notary or to some regulatory authority, then you need certain validators in the loop that can do real-world checks on the data that has been written to a blockchain, for example. Did this really happen? Because otherwise you just promise, but you don't prove. So there's a lot to this. And as Stefan said, I guess the last few years, and with our different product lines, it was always in that space. And now we have a great understanding what needs to be built to fulfill this need. And as we already talked about, this need is very, very broad. So you have it in classical use cases, you have it in the AI use cases. You can dive down into the, let's say, audio vertical, and then you see IP licensing, or you see generative audio. There are a lot of use cases, but they all boil down to the question of how can you prove that something really happened. And that's the core of what we are building now.
And I'd add to this, because it's very interesting when we remember a lot of discussions we had during the first years of Unibright. Back then it was mostly still about digitalization, so bringing some analog paperwork or perhaps an email into something structured that can be used in digital environments, so perhaps like a blockchain platform. But now, especially with agentic AI, we see it the other way around. There's a huge increase of automation potential, let's call it that way. And the digital assets are in a digital world anyway. The processes are also more and more digital. And now with agentic AI, the actors get also more digital. So in a proof of execution world, it will be a very vital part to prove execution that systems or agents did, and to have that proof anchored by human beings that are decentralized by definition. I also mentioned that last time. So proof of execution nowadays, and in our understanding and in our platform, would also mean that completely automated processes get verified and validated by human beings distributed in different positions around that process.
Yeah, because autonomous systems and automated systems, they just won't send signed PDFs or screenshots around the world via email. there needs to be a different platform.
So there are certain principles to this kind of system, hybrid, open, incentivized, close to reality. Could you briefly walk us through what each of those principles means in practice?
I don't know if I get the question completely as it's meant to be, but for the proof of execution infrastructure that we are building, this will be an open platform, an incentivized platform, in contrast, for example, to Baseledger, which always was meant to be a public permission thing. So that's my 2 cents on this.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground today. I want to thank everyone who submitted questions and to the team, as always, for being willing to address some of the tougher structural topics head on. As with the previous AMAs, not every single question will get a final answer today. That's intentional. Open questions and tensions are exactly what this series are meant to surface. Any remaining or follow-up questions will be carried forward into future sessions, including possibly a deeper dive on proof of execution once the time is right. Thanks again for joining, and we're looking forward to continuing this conversation with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.